Welcome everyone to ARC's first video update. Our goal with these videos is to provide our customers updates, not only for us as a company, but also maybe trends in the industry that they're going to be experiencing. Keep you posted on what's happening here. Answer some questions we may field from you. Hopefully from time to time, we're going to get some guests on here. We're going to have some giveaways. Just generally try to keep everyone up to date, I think, more frequently. And my name is Andrew Hurst. With me today is
Matt Welch.
And we really appreciate you guys joining us, and we're going to get into it. So let's start with some industry news, shall we? 2020 has been...
It's been quite a year.
It's been quite a year, man.
It's been a pretty terrible year in a lot of ways.
Pretty terrible year. And I don't know if it's been worse for anybody than those in the live events hospitality industry. We actually deal, as a company, we do... a significant amount of work in the trade show space. I would say almost 60% of our business is done in trade show and live events. So that's trade shows. That's what are those called? Trade events, both public but also private ones, product launches, things like that. And we do a significant amount of business in those. But as we saw at the beginning of 2020,
it's just been decimated. Yeah, and I think everyone kind of had their fingers crossed, and a lot of these shows were set. We were told, hey, they're going to push them to the fall. But then as the end of summer started rolling around, we started seeing that these shows were going virtual. Mm-hmm. They were not popping up. And so, everybody's kind of holding their breath still. And I know that industry is really reeling. I've been reading some stuff about it. So the good news is we have seen some shows come up on the schedule. We have people book shows for early next year. Mm-hmm. But again, I think it's kind of with fingers crossed right now that if these shows are going to happen, everyone's hoping for the best. But.
Exactly. I think a lot of it's going to have to do with the travel restrictions, especially when you look at the international stuff. So I think we'll see, like you said, I mean, I just read an article, I think today, between like United or Delta or something like that. It's just a disaster, man. It's not good for those. But all that being said, I've talked to a couple different owners of either display companies or some marketing personnel over the last couple of weeks, and I think everyone's optimistic that sometime 2021, like hopefully, basically I think what we're waiting for is a vaccine. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know, but I think we're waiting for a vaccine. I think that'll help deliver some confidence back in the trade show space and live event space.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So, we're hoping that we can see those signs back in 2021 for the trade shows. However, what has been, I think, taking up most of our mind share and airways recently is the absolute madness that's going on inside of the truckload market. If any of you guys participate in the truckload market, you'll know what I'm talking about. For whatever reason, I don't know, Matt, but we're seeing like 40, sometimes 50% increase in costs for no reason other than, I mean, it's the supply and demand, obviously, right?
Right.
But we're seeing stuff out at like absolutely bonkers. When fuel is now at an all-time low, or not all-time low, but it's a low for the last, a couple of years. It's been a low. You've got what we thought was going to be a slowdown in the economy because how many of us are not working?
Right.
But we're actually seeing peak seasons before a peak season was supposed to happen. So I mean, we're looking at stuff that was like 2018, 2017 when we had, our booming economy and the prices for truckload were surging. We're seeing those same type of numbers again. Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah, as I've been reading, obviously coronavirus has had impact on truckload as well. People think, well, what does domestic truckload have to do with, inventory? But it does. Like a lot of people ordering overseas, all those containers. We had whole manufacturing plants getting shut down, and just not being able to produce stuff. So people have low inventory. They're trying to catch up. Capacity is still low. And it's crazy. I mean, like you said, in 2018, we kind of said this was a perfect storm, but it seems like there was another storm right around the corner.
Well, that's a great point. All the, for what, I mean, you figure like May, June, trucking had taken a massive hit. Everybody put all their orders on hold. Like, we're not going to buy new trucks. We're not going to buy new trailers. But then to your point, now everybody's out of all their stuff. To where now people, I mean, I was at, I think it was Target the other day, and they still only have like 2 bins of their paper products filled up. It's not like they've got the whole thing shored up. So if it's at ours in Cleveland, you can imagine what it's probably like around the rest of the U.S. Yeah. Especially in the major metro areas like your Phoenixes where the populations are just, way more dense than Cleveland.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
So yeah, I think we had when we were prepping, I think we talked about looking at truckload. We see this trend, and a lot of people are seeing this trend kind of last through 2021. I think we had said.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to experience elevated truckload costs through 2021, barring any changes that we might see, simply because there's no reason that it would end, because we're still trying to catch up and meet demand and meet capacity overall. So
yeah, I know a lot of companies are trying to get their bids out as well and secure pricing for next year. And so again, everybody's busy right now, and nobody wants to answer the phone, and it's definitely trending busy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's good for you if you're in that position and you're going to take advantage of that.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
You could say, well, that's just the market and you can do it. That's perfectly fine. I think we always look at it like, when people build out their pro formas for the year, when manufacturers built out their pro formas for the year, they had some level of expectation, right, for what something was going to cost. And we always try to keep that in mind when working with them, just because it's hard, man. When you're dealing with stuff that you have no control over. Yeah, I think it has to go with your vendor relationships at the end of the day. Really making sure you're the vendor and partner. Your vendors are your partners more than anything else.
Yeah,
and we saw this in LTL too, right?
Right.
I mean, LTL
direct connection.
Direct connection. Yeah, they're getting crushed. I was talking to, I don't know who it was. I think it was one of the big LTL vendors. I was talking to their sales director of sales, and he said they have enough capacity to double. Like right now, they've got enough demand. Demand to double capacity if they wanted to. Like overnight, they just can't find drivers, they can't find tractors, and they can't find trailers. Which
that is wild.
Yeah, which it's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that is totally wild.
It's absolutely insane.
Do you have any tips, Andrew, for basically just securing LTL or truckload? Do you think it's a wise time to try to lock in rates and get bids, or since the spot market's it's trending upward? How do you kind of manage that tightrope between contracted rates and spot market rates if you're a shipper?
Sure, it's a good question. It's actually a question we do actually get asked pretty frequently. I would say that there's two ways I would go about it, Matt. I think the first thing I would do is I would try to align myself with partners, vendors and partners that really care about delivering, I would say, growing that relationship. So I would try to approach them. If I was a manufacturer, try to approach them and say, listen, I understand what's going out in the market, what's going on outside in the marketplace. I understand what maybe opportunities are being presented to you for a short term, but as any relationship, we're looking at this as a long-term engagement, so that in the future, when the spot market maybe isn't as flush as it is today, you still keep your wheels turning and keep your guys busy, and you can hire your drivers in confidence, knowing you're going to have guaranteed loads. I would do that, number one. But secondly, I would sweeten the pot for them a little bit. I would try to proactively give them a bump in their per mile rate that we had agreed upon proactively. Yeah. Simply because that will go a long way in terms of how they perceive you and ultimately how they think you perceive them. What type of partner do you think they think you perceive them as? So that's the first thing I'd do. The second thing I would do is I would be careful to add brokers to my broker board outside of my asset carriers, simply because the more brokers you add, the more you can see them to begin to compete with one another.
Sure.
So one of the things, as a broker, one of the things we see is on a waterfall scenario, when we might not be the first carrier or the second carrier, by the time it gets to us, there's 2 or 3 other people looking for the same truck.
Right.
And then what are we doing? We're literally bidding the truck up, because he now has 3 brokers calling him saying, hey, we want to give you this load, and we actually compete against one another for that truck. And I think in the end, the manufacturer loses when they try the spray and pray mentality with brokerage. I don't think that's a win mentality. I think you limit your brokerage. You find brokers that care, not brokers that are just going to give you a good rate, but brokers that care, because there's a big difference between a broker that will give you a rate, right? That's, whatever we can, but actually covering it on time and in full like you want. I think that's a big difference. So those are the 2 ways I'd approach that question ultimately to, I think, find success for your truckload issues. Yeah. All right, Segway. All right, so our segue, we're going to move into our company culture. So I'm going to task you, Matt, with telling us what our mission
Great.
what our mission statement is. So, Matt, what's ARC's mission statement?
So ARC's mission statement is To be an indispensable supply chain partner by providing unparalleled customer service, industry education, and problem solving with a never say no attitude.
Absolutely. And I think that, I mean, while it might be lengthy in some ways, I think that really does encapsulate ultimately what we try to always do to every single customer with every single interaction. So we believe in our mission statement strongly. We believe that it brings value to every relationship we're in. So I appreciate that. One of the things we like to do now is give a little bit of service overview in terms of maybe the scorecard section of this. And I think the one thing we want to talk about a little bit is volume. So at the beginning of this, we talked about we were very closely tied to trade show, not only obviously revenue-wise, but also volume-wise. So how has our volume been handled over the course of the year? So from your point of view, Matt, how do you feel that our volume, based on our scorecards, you can make up whatever metric you want today, volume has increased or decreased in terms of maybe a year-over-year capacity?
Well, I think it's changed a lot for us, right? Because of like what you mentioned. I know that our volume was way down because of the live events. I think like ARC always does, we also internally kind of scrambled a little bit and said, hey, how can we continue to get freight, continue to move freight, even maybe moving in some areas where we didn't necessarily pursue in the past because we just didn't need to.
Yeah.
So I know we've seen some uptick with some more commoditized freight, and that's helped actually get our volume. I think, I would say maybe even, but where's the numbers at?
So yeah, to your point, actually we just looked at these, or I was just looking at these before we sat down, and we're actually ahead of last year in terms of true volume by a factor of like 2.5.
Really?
And just pure play volume of pounds shipped. But ultimately, like you said, it's not the same type of freight. So we have to move a significant amount of more to stay, even when you look at dollars and cents in terms of organization. Gotcha. So with that, you're right, man. We had to we had to pivot. We had to kind of change focus. We had almost 2 years of building into the trade show and live events industry, becoming a reliable brand, to kind of have that all washed away in a week, basically. I mean, we went a week from having trade shows all over, getting spooled up for February, to have nothing. Now, there are some of our customers who are way worse, right? They don't have the ability to kind of retool like we were able to do on the fly. But yeah, we see our volumes actually, the actual like per shipment volume increased significantly, which is it's a blessing, man. We're very, very blessed to be able to have something like this happen to us, but be able to make some internal adjustments to get us back on track. Our on-time performance for the month is 99.98%.
Sounds pretty good.
That's pretty darn good. Yeah. Normally it's in that 99.98, triple or quad 9, that whole thing. I think it's a testament to the type of vendors that we allow our system to utilize, and also our operations team. Our claims percentage, we have a claims percentage of 99% as well. So not only are we delivering on time in full, but our claims are usually extremely, extremely low. And that's also the same thing, a testament to our vendors. And it's something that we obviously manage and monitor every single week. We have EOS. We utilize EOS, which is a internal monitoring metrics for our team. It kind of has aligned our team, aligns our thoughts and our processes, even with our vendors in many ways, right? So we go through these scorecard exercises every single week in an effort to make sure that we don't skip over our claims, and we have a proper reporting mechanism for all these different things that are important to not only us, but I think the reason why they're important to us, obviously, is to give our customers the same experience they've always had moving forward.
Yeah. So let me ask you a quick question on that. Sure. You mentioned our damage. Everybody hates damage, and we know with moving parts and pieces, it does happen. How do we, what's ARC's approach to basically minimizing damage for shipments? You mentioned our vendors, but I guess what specifically more do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I think it comes down to a couple different ways I guess we manage our vendors. The first thing is we pick partners that put customer service as a priority, right? So everybody shops around on rates. Obviously the rates is a huge thing when you look, especially when you're looking at commoditized stuff. Rates are very, very important. But we also look at how is the carrier's or the vendor's network actually built? So we actually go deep into the vendor and say, okay, how do you actually move freight? What's the route of freight? And then we look ultimately at when when we do have a claim, how do they respond to those claims? It's almost a perfect correlation to somebody who responds to a claim like it's almost like you're annoying them or you're bothering them. They usually have a higher level of claims than somebody who, rushes to the claim to try to solve it and try to figure it out. So we have an internal scorecard, internal metrics that we go through on a quarterly basis with all of our vendors to make sure that they're abiding by and that any situation we have is quickly being resolved. And that allows us to make sure the vendors we pick aren't just the cheapest vendor out there, but are a vendor that cares about the customer and a vendor that has put in the time and effort to build their network in a way that reduces damage by either cross-dock, it's different types of ways they cross-dock, how they load trucks, and also proximity. So the further out you go, the more weight you have to have in a truck to make that truck worthwhile, just because in terms of operating costs. So we like to make sure that when we pick a partner, that we understand their lanes, understand most likely what the cost is to run those lanes for them, and that allows us to make better decisions when we pick our vendors.
Gotcha.
Ultimately.
That reminds me of something actually. We talk about it internally with our teams too, in our operations and sales, but our total value contribution. Because I think that what you just described is often what we also try to portray to our customers. Hey, we know we can move stuff from A to B, but what other value can we bring to the table, right, to help our customers know that their shipments are taken care of, making sure they know when it's getting picked up, when it's getting delivered, knowing how quick we're going to talk to them when something changes, because things do change. So it's great that we do that. Obviously, we take that to heart, because that's the same idea that we take when we, try to work with our customers and say, look, again, it goes back to our mission statement, the never say no attitude. Like, if you ask us to do something, we're not going to say no. We're going to try whatever we can to find you a solution to take care of
in vain sometimes. Trying in vain sometimes. Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head, man. It's what we call our total value, contribution, and it's just simply that, man. When we want to look at a customer, and I'll stop saying man after that. I think you hit it on the head. I think that the total value contribution is the only real way to measure what you're getting. You can get something cheaper, you can get something that has value associated with it. And I think we agree that it's the only way that we last in an industry like logistics is adding value every time we interact with somebody. So this moves us to the did you know section. I don't even know what did you know section is. Did you know? So did you know that in 1948, Andrews Air Freight, which is the precursor to ARC Transportation, was founded by George, the founder of ARC's grandfather or dad. So in 1948,
that was your grandfather.
So my grandfather.
Yeah.
So in 1948, my grandfather founded a company called Andrews Air Freight. It was just a local P&D company, and I don't know if my name. I like to think my name was,
of course,
was looped in there somehow. But Andrews Air Freight operated as an ACI carrier, or basically he was contracted by the airlines to do all their local pickup and delivery. And that company was, that's how the Hearst kind of started into air freight. And my dad, he was 13, whatever, drove trucks in the airport. That's what,
13,
back in the 50s, who knows, 50s and 60s, who knows what people were doing. But, that's when they started doing all that sort of stuff. And, you fast forward to today, and we're still in logistics. We're still operating in Cleveland, Ohio, and it's still a family company to some degree. We've obviously grown a lot. We've gotten a lot of different things, but at the heart of it, man, we're still I'm going to stop saying man. I don't know. At the heart of it, we're still focused on delivering value to our customers.
That's a pretty cool story, though. That's a lot, 3 generations. So, guys, I know earlier we mentioned our mission statement. It's part of our vision statement as a company, but we also have specific values as a company that we try to follow when we're here, and we want to take a minute to talk about one of those values and give a shout out to one of the ARC employees that we felt like highlighted that value this month. So, Andrew, the value this month is train and develop.
Train and develop. So obviously it's pretty self-explanatory what this value is. We want everybody inside of our organization to always try to reach that next level. and not only learn but also be able to execute on what they've learned. And this month's highlight is for John Owski. John works in our domestic operations division. Yep, go John.
Good job.
And he had the opportunity to fill in as the actual operations manager for about a half a month. We had one of our guys had to leave for about a half a month to take care of some things, and he stepped in his place. And this meant, kind of a duality of roles in many ways, and he absolutely crushed it. I mean, it was very, very good. It gave us confidence that he can make the right decisions moving forward. And that whole learning on the fly thing, that he was able to kind of adapt to his surroundings, even when he was approached with things that he might have not learned, in a more structured environment, he was able to get it done. So shout out to John for being able to demonstrate that train and develop is something that we focus on as a company here.
Awesome. Congratulations, John.
Congratulations, John. And with that takes us to the end of our maiden video. We have 35 seconds left before these things cut out again. Great. So we will. Any special announcements for you, Dave?
No, coming up here is Halloween.
Yeah, nice.
So, and I know it's been a weird, like some people aren't sure if they're doing it. I know in our neighborhood they're having Halloween.
Yeah.
So we're happy about that. The kids can at least get out and get some candy.
We'll see. Yeah, we're wiping those each individual candy down.
Yeah, I don't think.
Or you dump it out as you walk in, you dump it in your trash.
Right. Yeah,
bring out another bag for your kids.
I don't think the homemade candy too is gonna fly this year. So one of my friends gives out cans of Mountain Dew. The neighbors all love him for that.
Yeah.
But everybody out there, have a safe Halloween.
Have a safe Halloween, everyone. Have a good rest of your October.